And we're ready.
Ian. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you joining. We're getting everybody together after kind of a long hiatus. Thought we'd do another Radio Free Renegades, Renegade Squadron production, talk through our experience through Cloud City Modified. Again, appreciate everybody tuning in to listen to us jabber on about Star Wars CCG. My name is Misha. I'm Rouge One on GEMP. And excited to talk through my personal experience and hear what our motley crew's opinions were. I guess I'll go around the horn. We have a esteemed new member joining us, a man who needs no introduction. DRTORCH, you want to give us a little 2 cents, introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Paul Feldman, and I'm DRTORCH.
Yeah, no introduction needed. Org, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, Lodgepork here. I'm running the tech side of things today. Been kind of working a lot lately, but I'm excited to hear the recap and what's coming up next for the Retro Star Wars CCG.
Absolutely. And another new member, Ian, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ian. Been playing with you guys for a while. I'm not sure if this is my first one of these though.
I think it is. And what's your handle on GEMP?
C-Sticks.
Nice. Did very well in the premiere through Cloud City Modified. And, Ben, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, I am Ben Kenobi, Ben Lindstrom, Renegade B, I guess, or Renegade B-Wing. I really enjoyed Premiere to Cloud City Modified, although I did awful in it. Way worse than I've so far done way worse than I did last year, even though I'm a way better player. But it's been a lot of fun, and I think a lot of people agree that Premiere to Cloud City Modified is one of the most fun formats, period. And I ran some crazy, way different decks that were a lot of fun, and hopefully we kind of cover a lot of what worked and what didn't work and everything here in the short amount of time that we have.
Yeah, definitely. And Rabbit Eddie is joining us too, but he's on mute. He said he was going to get some Chick-fil-A, so I'm not sure if Eddie, are you there?
I'm here.
Right. How you doing, Eddie?
I'm doing good. Glad to be back.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'll kick us off. Maybe kind of an open-ended first question. What was the most surprising thing for you guys, having never played the format before? I think we all did some play testing before the tournament actually kicked off. But once we started getting into tournament level play, what did you guys see that was surprising?
I think the variety of different strategies in terms of how to deal with sense alter control, it starts to get really varied once you've got control in the picture, and it really complicates those battles a lot more than you see in later formats, where there's a kind of a couple defined ways that people go, and earlier formats where it's just sense alter and the grabbers. So I think that was really interesting because it really varied as to what matchup you were dealing with, what may have worked or didn't work.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely
at this
agree.
point, we would have seen, if the first one was Premiere to Hoth, then this would be the first time we're seeing Do It or Not and There Is No Try.
Correct.
Which gives you another option that he's talking about.
Yeah. What about you, DRTORCH? Anything that was surprising as you got like 3 or 4 games into the tournament, or were you kind of things play out how you thought they would?
It kind of went how I thought it was going to go. The thing was trying to figure out what everyone's meta was going to be. People had these kind of ideas of where they wanted to go, and if you didn't account for it, you could really get, smacked around. Like, for example, there was one guy that was, I don't want to say anybody's name or anything, but came up with a very fun, not fun to play against, crazy idea of revolutions and brew stew. And if you had nothing in your deck to deal with a revolution brew stew, you could just be going, I don't want to play this game ever again. So, but if you had something to do with it, it's a pretty much guaranteed loss after the initial first steps of the game. And
after
so,
shock and awe.
it's just, there was no way to close that game out.
Yeah.
There was a good start, but it was, I mean, it was fun. I had never seen anybody do a Baru stew so they could first turn Revolution and just say, ha, there, it's gone. You have nothing now. And if it goes off, that's crazy. If it doesn't go off, how are you going to finish the game? And so, but you had to account for things like that. Same thing I saw scanning crew deck, same thing. If you don't have, if you don't have a way to fight off scanning crews, how are you going to if every time your deck centers around Obi-Wan and you can never get Obi-Wan out, that's a messy deck to play against.
Yeah, there was definitely some MPE slipping into Cloud City Modified in spite of the bans, but definitely some really clever ideas for sure. Eddie, anything you were surprised by?
Yeah, I was actually surprised by the variety of decks. I think I played probably a different. My opponents each had different decks, completely different archetypes. I faced Total Space deck that I copied for one of my games actually. And then someone had like an Aliens build, and then there was of course the Vader deck, and so really wide variety of decks that were all pretty viable.
Definitely. I think what surprised me prior to the tournament, everybody was running Clouds and Occupation, or at least playing around with it. And then I would say by the second or third Dark Side game, I didn't see any of that. And all the games I watched, it seemed like that strategy was really viable to start with as like the main driver engine for what you were going to do. And that seemed to completely fall off, which I was surprised by personally.
Was that perhaps because people would play it a little bit early and Super Falcon would come down and just kind of take control of the clouds?
Yeah. And you pack whatever the anti-Talon roll. I think just it ran its course and people realized it wasn't as good as it was, as people initially thought, I think, going into the tournament.
Well, I have an interesting thing, at least I think it's interesting. Eddie pointed out something to me that last year, I didn't know this, but I guess my decks are on the internet because I played the game and it streamed. And he goes, people know what you're going to play. So as people figured out what other people were playing, the meta changed because they geared up against it. And some people that didn't change at all, that are really good players, came out there with the same exact decks, even though the meta changed against them, and got beaten pretty badly. I mean, where they had a losing record for the tournament. People that you would say are some of the best players in the world. And so that's the key, is trying to stay one step ahead of what you think everyone's going to change to fix.
I will say, go ahead, Ben, please.
Yeah, I think game 1 or game 2, I played Timo Dussel, who is definitely one of the best players in the world, and I beat him, but I went 2-4 or whatever overall, so a lot of that was matchup, and in Premier to Cloud City, luck is still a factor because you're not pulling too many things.
And I was going to say that's gonna be a lot higher factor in anything before objectives and starting interrupts, is that there is a lot more luck where you can have a great deck that's built with all the right ratios and still just totally choke. I actually was playing a P to indoor game earlier today that I'm still not sure what my opponent's deck did, because his 2 copies of the Echo Command Center were in the last 9 cards and not the 40 he drew up.
Oh my gosh.
Like, holy crow.
Yeah. Going back to the meta shift, I think, Torch, you bring up an interesting idea, and I'd speak from my personal experience. I played Eddie, and I know Eddie pretty much had my number on what I had built. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll change it up, and I'll try to build what I think he's going to play. And all those mind games absolutely didn't work for me, and I got destroyed. So trying to stay step ahead can often backfire, and you end up playing, your opponent shifts to what you think what they're not. You shifts to what you don't think they're going to play. You change, try to tech against it, and you end up with a mismatch. So I think that adds a complexity. I'm not sure it's my favorite thing, but it's certainly a part of the tournament until
what
we
I
get
mean by that a lot is that the tournament before was so very sense alter heavy, right?
Got it. Yeah.
So now we go into this format, And some people go, you know how I beat that? I'm going to add more sense alters, and I'll add controls, and I'll do more. There's other ways to beat that.
For sure.
And so more necessarily is not better. It's just, so, you know, that's what I saw a lot of, is people decide to really double down on the senses and alters and go more on them. And now it's becoming a luck of a draw. Who's going to win that sense alter battle? And then that's going to deplete somebody's 7 cards in that big battle.
Totally.
Well, so one card that I don't know would have been in the Premier to Hoth would be Visored Vision and Voyeur, which I like to have as a Scorched Earth option for after that big battle, especially if you lost it. Because if they're out, you can throw one of those down and clear out their entire use pile full of Sense Alter that they just took you out with.
Yeah, great card. Good call out. Anything that you guys are happy to leave behind as we go into Premier through Endor? Any things you won't be broken up, won't stay up at night thinking about having to play again?
Sense
No,
Alter?
I don't like the luck factor. I do not like the luck factor.
Yep, fair. Totally fair.
It's always going to be there with cards.
It's true. That's
Yeah,
why we play the game.
You can have
I
pocket
think-
aces and still lose because it's a bad flop, even though you started with
Right.
the best hand.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we put our heads together before we got on and pulled up some cards we thought were really interesting and saw a lot of play during the tournament. Thought we could walk through some of them. I know we did a video before this. We talked about what we thought were going to be important, and I think it'd be fun after we go through this conversation to see what is on here that wasn't before and what are repeats. But maybe Ian, you want to talk through? I think you like to play the surprise. You already mentioned Visor Vision and Imperial Decree. You want to talk through those 3 cards?
Yeah, so I mean, Imperial Decree is really strong because it cancels all light side force drain bonuses everywhere, and it also answers Revolution if you got behind or weren't able to get your evader through, which is huge because Revolution up to this point has been one of the cards that has been extremely relevant in the meta. Surprise is another one that also helps answer that because you can then move their Revo.
Yeah, great card.
Or you can retarget Clash, which is another card that's up here.
One point to touch there, though, it doesn't cancel all light side bonuses because if it's on a dark side card and it's a bonus for light side, that still counts.
It's true.
So,
but it cancels your lightsabers or clouds if they were available in the meta, stuff like that.
Yeah, good cards. I know Dr. Torch, you like to go toe to toe often. You want to talk about weapon levitation and force field? I think those are probably staples.
Yeah, I like the staples of those cards that I like a lot is the dark side is bad feeling because I like making it tougher to get you guys down and stops a big beat down. And then force field's great to have, and weapon levitations especially for 2 reasons. Obviously, you get a 1 out of your deck, and if you can't find that saber, it helps pull it out of the use pile, and then or it helps take away somebody from chopping you up right away. And especially in that format, they didn't have their version. Light side wasn't out yet.
Yeah,
and all the characters
a little
play
unfair.
the actual lightsaber cards. You don't have the EPPs that you can't steal from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's also nice if you're dueling, you can pull a saber off a character to circle on Obi. You can pull a saber off him, which is nice.
That's just mean.
It feels good when you pull it off.
You start a battle, you circle it, or you take his weapon, and then you circle him so Tarkin can cancel.
Yeah.
Oh no, that would just be epic, but
it's
still.
brutal.
You know, one
that's really
card
rough.
I think I saw DRTORCH play extremely effectively. That's not on here was Yoda Stew, and the way that can be used to get cards back in your force pile during your opponent's turn, and help cycle some high destiny cards that you don't necessarily need right now is huge.
It's huge
So,
in certain types of decks. And I gotta tell you, who showed me that was DRTORCH. He played it, and I for a long time I was like, this is a dumb card, and then I actually paid attention to it. And if you're doing certain things, it's a good card, and it's very helpful. And so, and if you can track cards, it can be very helpful. For example, if you put it 7 down last, and you pay 1 force, and now you know where your 7 is for things,
mhm.
And then I did that with a few cards in my deck that I paid to put the 7 where I needed it to be, and then it was there.
Yeah, I think when you and N-Rabbit were facing off, there was a series of about 4 turns where every Destiny draw was like a 6 or a 7 because
Yeah, because I
you
was
kept getting
placing it with
cards.
there.
Yeah, and that
So,
was really cool to watch.
but that was yeah, that was why I liked the card, and I was like, okay, this helps me. For,
Well, so something else on those lines that was pointed out to me today or yesterday by SWC player was using broken concentration to be able to control destinies that you're tracking, so that you can still search through and do things like use guys to get stuff out of your deck when you're pulling a search without losing the cards that you're tracking, because you can activate to wherever you need to, or use force wherever you need to, with the ones you've tracked, and then get them into your use pile or your force pile while you're searching, and use broken concentration to ensure that they are where you want them to be later.
That's a really
Interesting.
interesting use of that card.
That's yeah, I didn't think that far through. Um,
Right? It's the same idea with Janus because the ability to use and draw a card at any time is so huge because you can like just like you said, activate the card you want to track, Janus, and then now you've just stacked 2 destinies, and that's one of the great ways to do it. To track and stack with cards like
Yep.
Broken Concentration, Janus.
naughty.
that card is perfect for messing up people like me.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, and then it messes up your opponent's tracking too, which is
that's what
awesome.
I like
It
because I'm not
messes
good at
me up
tracking,
so much.
but I can mess you up pretty good.
So
I gotta drop off, guys. See you.
All right, take care, Eddie. Thanks for joining.
One
Um,
thing that one card I find very interesting, and so lower corridor, the light side card, and then the dark side card, and same thing with Kessel light side versus dark side. I think in this format, the light side cards are extremely powerful. I mean, Kessel's always great, right, for light side, and dark side Kessel's pretty good too for returning the battle, and then dark side lower corridor is a 1/1 site with -1 drain for light side, so it really cuts down light side's drain from what could be a drain of 3 down to a drain of 1. So one thing I noticed was, and I did this myself, is sometimes when I had no intention of trying to counter light side in one of those spaces, that I'd still run the site just to play it after they played theirs. So as light side, you have to make the decision of when is the appropriate time to play those cards and move there and start to get the drain. And I think that was an interesting decision that people had to make.
yeah,
I'm not an expert in terms of determining when it was, but it is an interesting thing to think about.
I
Well,
mean, dark
lower
side not
corridor is
packing the lower corridor would be a huge wasted opportunity, because it's such a huge flip. It takes it from a 2-1, where they're power +2, to a 1-1 -1 drain where your guys are power +2, which means you can now circle Obi again.
Right.
yeah, lower corridor for dark in that format was a must to have in your deck because everyone weren't running the lower corridor for light.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was just it was like having an undercover spy that you could just
And
pop out.
I mean,
Right.
the light side lower corridor, that's where you would stick Obi at this point. Like, unless you're running a utility belt or something on him, the lower corridor is the safest place to put him.
Utility belt won't work in Cloud City though.
Right. No, I just mean that would be your other safe place, would be put Obi on Tatooine with the utility belt.
Oh.
Anywhere else other than those 2 locations, by default, he's circleable.
And I did see some people running Saitor Kai Fas or whatever, the adds 1 to power of warrior effect for that reason, and it let you put Obi somewhere else.
But the nice thing about the lower corridor is it sits on the table.
Right.
Like it's really the best option if you can keep it to your side, because you can lose Obi and then play the next one there and still not worry about it.
Yep.
Cytor or the utility belt, both those options leave the table with him.
Well, I mean, you have to have the lightsaber, so you'd have to get Obi-Wan saber back if you did lose Obi-Wan with saber from the lower corridor.
All right, but even saberless, if the two of you do a circle like that, Vader beats Obi on a circle with no bonuses.
Right. So, kind of moving on here. Clash of Sabers, You Are Beaten, Uncontrollable Fury. I think everybody can agree those are some of the best cards in the game, period, right? Being able to eliminate a character from a battle, either after you hit them and then they're lost, or, before a battle, during a battle, there's so many options. And then Uncontrollable Fury, I don't know if it falls into the category of one of the best cards in the game, but it can really hurt somebody who puts down Vader. And if you can get a spy there and they don't have a sniper or some way to deal with the spy, and Vader is isolated, that can really hurt. But then it's canceled by You Are Beaten, but then, which is good for Darkseid, but then you've lost a You Are Beaten, which you could use against a light side character. So, it's really, it's another one of those really cool card combinations where you can, decide how you want to play things. And I think for this reason and for the power of those cards, I think like in the decks we were looking at, there's at least 2 of them in those decks for that reason.
That was the meta change, just so you know, because everyone goes, oh, we're going to come across Vader. How can we stop him? Uncontrollable Fury. How do I stop Uncontrollable Fury? You Are Beaten. And then it becomes, you just go back and forth until somebody's trying to run 7 of 1.
And Uncontrollable Fury is pulled by Clash of Sabers. So light side sometimes has to burn their Clash in order to get that. So to get Uncontrollable Fury in hand when Vader's down and hitting you for a drain of 3. So I do think Decipher did try to balance, strong cards with certain drawbacks. So great cards. I think one thing that was really fun to see was light side having Smokescreen and the ability of a 4 or 5 character, was it 5 or 6 character, to punch Vader out, which felt real nice, because prior to this you didn't really have a great answer to Vader's immunity. It also gets around Tarkin because you're subbing a Destiny, so you can feel pretty confident battling into Vader and Tarkin if you've got this. And then obviously Sense Alter Control is a whole different conversation as to whether it gets through, but does give Lightside some staying power in those battles, being able to punch out Vader. So I was happy to have that in my deck. It felt good when I got a chance to play it.
Yeah, I actually...
One thing with cards like that, you're always trying to bait out those senses so that you can get that one crucial thing through. So you'll try and throw out other stuff that they don't want you to do and try and get rid of the senses, or at least get the sack war out early.
Yeah, definitely.
I actually substituted instead of Smokescreen, I had Somersault. I forgot which card it was I was supposed to put in the deck, and that
I remember that.
nowhere near as useful.
You still won too, didn't you?
I still won. That was the game against Timo.
Somersault's not a bad card though. I mean, Tequila is good back in the day. And it's awesome in sealed. Somersault's the same way. If I pull this in sealed, I always play it.
But absolutely, it's not an awful card, but it's not on the same level as Smokescreen, where you can get around Tarkin's Destiny canceling, for example.
It depends. So I would say that Somersault would be a great card to add against high-level players who are tracking those awful Destinies that you don't want them to have. Let them do all the work to track. I'll just throw Somersault at it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, yeah.
I played 2 Tequilas against Eddie because I knew his tracking was way better than mine. I didn't get to use them, but I threw it in there. Yeah, I knew that you were trying to get. I think I must have top decked or something to a 4-strain, but I had at least 2 in my deck when I was decking against you.
Oh my god, I didn't even know that. That's funny. I'm back, by the way. I'm back.
Yeah, welcome back. trying to think. I think we hit most of these cards, trying to
We
keep
were-
the conversations not too long in tooth. Maybe Eddie, I know you put a lot of teching and energy into building a turtle deck on Dagobah with some of the testing. You want to talk about kind of test 1 and 2 and what those play lines look like?
Yeah, I can't take full credit for the deck. I had it was a brainstorming session with Paul here. I think I was very surprised that not that many people were playing Test 1 because the testing is so powerful, and Yoda as well. It gives you the ability to sense alter guaranteed. And so I was just surprised that not as many people played it. It's very powerful in the right deck, and it can really just lock down the game.
Yeah.
Problem
Great
is
call.
it's a slow deck, and
Right.
and if some people went crazy fast. So as the decks start to speed up, it becomes a not viable format because it's in this format it was great, and I used it. Eddie used it, but as decks speed up with like Raltier Ops and stuff, it's a very slow deck, and you're giving them a lot of force to start with.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I've been trying some Mine What You Have Learned decks, and in like Premier to Death Star 2 against Ralops. It's tough.
It's really tough.
It's like, yeah, Ralops is a tough build.
Unexpected Interruption is fun just because it lets you pull any interrupt into hand from your reserve deck. It's expensive. It's a card that it's not a game changing card, but it can get you out of a tight spot, kind of like how Tunnel Vision can or provide you an opportunity, like Tunnel Vision can do. I don't even think we have that up, but great card, Tunnel Vision, and then if you have Yoda down, what is it?
Jedi Levitation.
Yeah, Jedi Levitation is great.
It's the one that pulls out of your used.
Yeah, so
super cool cards.
So yeah, both are really cool cards in the puller class, and I think they even get better later on, yeah, really fun and really useful to if you're activating big, man. Tunnel Vision can be great, and if you've got Yoda on table, man, Jedi Levitation, you deploy all your stuff, and you've got 1 force left to initiate your battle, and you can Jedi Levitation. If you've looked in your reserve deck and you see that